What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and it's been a while since we've done a top anything video, so why don't we come back strong with a top 15 video? And this is something many of you have been requesting, and I'm also proud to say that this video is sponsored by Dragonix Books, and we're going to be doing my top 15 monsters from Dragonix's Deadly Denizens. It's very hard to say 3 times fast. We'll talk about all the specifics and what goes into it in just a sec, so stay tuned. So as promised, this is going to be Dragonix's Deadly Denizens. If you're familiar with what Dragonix has done in the past, you'll know that I've done various videos on the variety of the different monster manuals expanded, both 1, 2, and 3. And what this is sort of an amalgamation of what's been created thus far on Dragonix's Patreon. So we're going to go ahead and show you it is over here on the DMs Guild. A best silver seller. It only came out a couple of days ago, early or late last week. It already has 5-star ratings on 11 ratings, all of 5 stars. It is $29.99, so consider that when you go to purchase it, but it is 290 pages, and this is some of the highest quality stuff you're going to see, from the art to the content. Also, there are 2 different packages. One will get you a VTT bundle, and another actually gets you an STL bundle. So if you have a 3D printer or access to one, you can actually download 3D printable files for a handful of the different creatures and print out minis for them as well. So we can see a variety of the art here. Again, we're going to dive into it in a sec, but I just wanted to show it off. Again, people are raving about this. Many of you have asked me to review it, and here we are. And once again, a huge shout out and thank you to Dragonix for sponsoring this video. And also, the DMs Guild link that you will find in the video description is a DMs Guild affiliate link. So if you happen to go pick it up via that link, I do benefit slightly monetarily from it. So without further ado, let's jump in. I should say there's really no specific rules. They're just something created in here. I will tell you up front that some of these are templates, meaning there's not a specific. I'll give you like kind of one monster that I like specifically, but if it's a template, it can be applied to basically anything, which I think is pretty cool. So anyway, with that, let's jump in. I don't have title cards for it, so number 15. We are going to be talking about the Siren here. Another thing to point out, this does have bookmarks, which you all know is something that's very important to me. So the Siren, nothing super crazy here as far as lore or, things like that. It's kind of what you expect. The art's a little bit different. I do like that they kind of have wings, but, we don't really have a traditional Siren. There may be a variant stat block, if I recall. Also, something to consider is almost every, if not every single stat block in here, you have multiple variations of them. So, for example, we have here the base Siren of a challenge rating 2, but then we also have a Siren Witch, which is a challenge rating 4, and then we even go on to a challenge rating 8 Siren Queen. We're just going to cover the base version here, but you can see you can have a lot of upscaled versions of this, which is nice that you can continue to throw the same type of creature at parties as you continue to play through your campaign without having to really look around too much. You can be like, oh, they really like that Siren fight. If they're back on the ocean in that area, maybe I bump it up to Siren, sea witches, essentially, as opposed to base Sirens. So, as you can see here, it's a monstrosity, challenge rating 2. Nothing too crazy, but, 40-foot swim speed. They have their fin spines, which do a poison, piercing damage and poison damage. And obviously, the main thing would be the song, right? The Siren song. That's what you come to expect from a Siren. It works out to 300 feet. Every humanoid that can hear must make a wisdom saving throw or be charmed. While charmed, they're incapacitated and ignore the songs of other Sirens. And then if they're more than 5 feet away, they must move the most direct route towards the Siren. It doesn't avoid opportunity attacks, but before moving into damaging terrain such as a lava pit, the target can repeat the saving throw. And then they also have this bonus action, Wing Glide, which recharges on a 4 to 6 that gives them a fly speed of 40 feet until the end of their turn, which makes sense given the wings that we see here. Number 14. This is the Afanc, and it is, the art is probably what did it for me with the creature. There's also, I'd say, a lot of interesting, chimera-style creatures, but this is the Afanc. It's essentially a bear, beaver, crocodile monster. And as you can see, it says it is, what does it say? The body and head of a 12-foot long beaver, limbs and jaws of a bear, and the claws, spine, and tail of a crocodile. And then it's obviously its tail ends in the massive paddle. I also thought it was interesting because it has invisibility. It is a monstrosity. I would have loved to see this as a beast, so it potentially would be an option for summoning of animals or possibly as a druid to shape change into. But it has resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. And then obviously it's got a handful of different natural attacks, right? A bite attack that also forces a poison saving throw. And then it can also grapple creatures that are larger or smaller. Claw attack. Its tail club does a strength saving throw or either a knockdown or a push. And then again, it magically turns invisible. The invisibility ends when it attacks or if it takes damage. And then again, as you continue down, we can see that was just the base Afanc, and there is both an alpha and a dire version, as well as rules for a lair. So a lot of information here that add a handful of different things, like a force wave where their tail impacts the ground and kind of sends out a force repulse. Really cool stuff, and just I don't know if this is routed or sorry, not even routed, rooted in some form of mythology or just an interesting thing that Dragonix and or his patrons came up with off the top of their head. I think it's pretty awesome. Number 13, the Forest Drake. Now, I will also say there's an entire list of drakes in this in a variety of different options and much more expanded than the ones that we just have from base 5e. These remind me a lot of older editions where you have things based on like areas, forest, desert, mountain, tundra, blah, blah, blah. I picked the forest because I love the art here. I love the sort of green, scaly body, but the sort of antlers that look like they're made out of wood, and then this weird sort of like shaggy fur down the spine. I just thought it was a really interesting thing, and it kind of gives me crocodile-like vibes, which I thought was pretty cool. And I think those might be antlers, but either way, they're really cool looking. And once again, as expected, a young variant, an adult variant, and then an ancient variant as the challenge rating scales up. But looking at the young version, they have a decent natural armor, immunity to poison, a charge ability where if they move, this is something we see in a lot of animal-like creatures, where if they move at least 20 feet and then hit with a certain attack, it'll deal extra damage, and then if it's a creature, they'll have to make a saving throw or be knocked prone. Again, we have a bite, a claw, the ram attack, again using the antlers, and then a poison breath, which is, at least at the base level, a 15-foot cube, which is interesting because we don't see a lot of cuboid breath weapons, which is interesting. And then again, a con save or poison damage and poison for 1 minute. If they're affected by the poison, it basically suffers the effect of the confusion spell, which is pretty cool. And again, like I said, as you level up to a higher level, you're going to get bonus actions. And then if we go down to the ancient version, you're going to have legendary actions and everything is going to jump up accordingly. So again, a really cool, but like I said, there are a ton of, as you can see here, right? Here's, what is this, an ice drake. There's a ton of different elemental drakes, not just tied to the elements, but also tied to regional locations. Definitely worth checking out. And there's some dragons you could throw at your party if you don't want to throw true dragons at them. But could be fun for like the townsfolk to say, oh, there's a dragon. So the party builds up in their head, dragon, traditional dragon, and it actually ends up being a drake. Number 12, we have the Ammit demon. Obviously, we're going to have a handful of different demons and devils, and another thing that I like is normally when we get a demon or a devil, we usually get one. And then again, continuing on the theme, you'll see we're going to get a variety of different versions. And with the demons, I like you kind of get like a one version, a more advanced version, and then like the prototypical one. So if we were to go and look at the Ammit, sorry, I promise you it's not all just crocodilian-like creatures in here. It's just I'm feeling nostalgic for my original 3.5 game, and my druid had a giant crocodile, so there you go. But obviously this is kind of Egyptian vibes to me here, right? Ammit, the Eater of Hearts. And then Ammit the Devourer is kind of the OG original version of this. And again, you even have a stat block for that kind of specific named version. So again, the head, upper back, and tail of a crocodile, the mane, neck, and front limbs of a lion, and the body and rear legs of a hippopotamus. All very terrifying animals to face in general, but then tack on the fact that this is a fiendish creature makes it even worse. Base version is a challenge rating 11, has a lot of the things you'd expect from a demon as far as resistances, magic resistance, and so on. We have just a traditional bite using that crocodilian mouth, which does piercing damage and is also a grapple and restrain. Claw damage, and then kind of one of the signature things here is the Devour Heart ability. So it works on one incapacitated creature or a creature grappled by the Ammit. They'll take piercing damage and necrotic damage. If that target is reduced to 0 hit points, their heart is devoured, they die, and the Ammit regains hit points equal to the hit point maximum of the creature. Or, sorry, half the hit points of the creature. Unless the Ammit is slain within 1 minute of this action, the creature's soul is sent to the abyss, and only a wish spell can stop that. A wish spell followed by a true resurrection spell can return them to life. It has a Baleful Glare ability here, which is a 60-foot range. Wisdom saving throw, and then on a failure, they take psychic damage and are frightened for a minute. A frightened creature is also paralyzed, possibly allowing you to queue up that bite attack. A teleport, 60-foot teleport, and then some base spell casting. Again, here's a Greater Ammit jumping up to challenge rating 14, all the way down to Ammit the Devourer, the prototypical version of this, jumping up to a challenge rating 22. Number 11. The Bone Devil Magus. Now, I've talked about this in the past before. I think Bone Devils are one of the coolest looking devils, in my opinion. I always like the sort of insectoid look they have with the big scorpion-style stinger tail made out of bones. And to make them a little more intimidating by giving them access to magical abilities just very much intrigues me. So I don't need to go too much over what a base Bone Devil is. You guys can all know it's in the monster manual. But this particular version here has magic resistance, as well as, all the normal things you'd expect, claws and a sting attack, but also elemental bolt, which is a ranged attack that does acid, cold, fire, or lightning damage, your choice, as well as a variety of different spell castings with a decent spell save of DC 16, and then also the ability to cast shield 3 times per day as a reaction, working similar to or actually identically to the shield spell. And the way it's written, I do believe that is the shield spell being cast, so in theory it could be counterspelled if the opportunity arose, but giving something with a 19 armor class out the gate the ability to just add +5 as a reaction is pretty nuts. Also, it has things like mirror image, which can make it even that much harder to hit. So a lot of interesting options here for the Bone Devil Magus, and then we have the High Magus, and then the Archmagus jumping all the way up to challenge rating 20. So again, if you're looking to add a little more variety to your encounters with devils, even if it's just ones that the party already knows, you don't want to add in something completely new, but a Bone Devil is something they might know of, and then you want to tweak it and say this one's more like a martial, naturalistic fighter, and it's more of a magic user. I think that that's pretty cool. Number 10. Krampus. Not really too much to say here, right? You know what Krampus is when I say it, but the art is just absolutely fantastic. Look at this nasty art here. Krampus here is a devil. It is essentially what you'd expect a Krampus to be. But let's go ahead and take a look at the stat block here. Challenge rating 7. Can see in magical darkness. Again, a lot of devil fiendish based resistances. But its attacks, it has the Birch Rod here, which does bludgeoning damage. And if the target is a non-good aligned creature, they must make a con save or be stunned. We have a Chain attack as well, which has some reach, and then there's a Grapple and Restrain. And then kind of the signature ability here, or one of them, is Imprison. On an incapacitated medium or smaller creature grappled by Krampus, the creature is imprisoned inside Krampus's back cage, or the grapple ends. The imprisoned creature is frightened and restrained. As an action, they can attempt to break out. The Krampus can have up to 2 medium creatures, or 1 medium, 2 small, or 4 small creatures trapped in its cage. Has some base level spellcasting, and then as a bonus action has clanging bells and chains. While clanging, any creature that starts its turn within 60 feet of Krampus must make a wisdom saving throw or become frightened until the end of its next turn. And again, while frightened, the target is also paralyzed. And we wouldn't be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that there is an Elder Krampus and a Krampus Lord, which again will get us significantly more powerful and adding in additional abilities here and there, including things like legendary actions. Number 9. Jack-o'-lantern. Again, Halloween's my favorite holiday. I know that's probably cliche to say nowadays, but I don't know. I just love it, and you're going to win me over with any kind of pumpkin-themed villain or enemy. And there's some interesting lore stuff written here, right? It's essentially like a version of a scarecrow, if you will. This is a construct, not an undead, which is also interesting. And it says that there's rumors that the original jack-o'-lantern was like a human that outwitted a powerful fae. And then when they were about to die, the fae captured back their soul and fused it with a pumpkin-headed scarecrow. And then that's kind of the first jack-o'-lantern we have. If we scroll down again, it's kind of golem-esque in the fact that it is a construct. It obviously sheds light from its jack-o'-lantern head. It has claws that do slashing and psychic damage and give the target a disadvantage on saving throws. A terrifying glare if its illumination is activated. That works out to on one target up to 30 feet. They must make a wisdom save or be frightened. Again, while frightened, the target is also paralyzed. Some variety of different spell casting. Some interesting options here. Things like Entangle, Suggestion, and so on. A bonus action, Misty Step, that recharges on a 5/6. And a reaction of Unnerving Barb. It imposes disadvantage on an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw made by a visible creature within 30 feet of it, provided they can hear and understand the jack-o'-lantern. And then we also have a greater jack-o'-lantern and a legendary jack-o'-lantern as well.
Number 8.
The Geomancer. As to be expected, we not only have a variety of different monsters, we also have miscellaneous creatures in the form of beasts, animals, insects, and so on, and then a pretty robust section covering various NPCs. And I thought the Geomancer was an interesting NPC in my opinion, as I don't really feel like there's a great way to replicate this style of character as a player character, so interesting to see it appear here as an NPC. We don't really have a lot of like earth magic stuff in 5e. So again, a challenge rating 4. It has spells and things that you would expect. Spike Growth, Thunder Wave, Meld into Stone, Mending, Mage Hand, Acid Splash, kind of earthy based spells. But I like that its individual attacks that aren't specific spells were pretty interesting. Like Rock Strike, which is a melee or ranged attack that does 2d8 plus 3 bludgeoning and can possibly knock a target prone. And then also has Rippling Earth, which recharges on a 5/6, causes the earth to move in a violent cascading motion in a 30-foot line 10 feet wide. Each creature in that must make a dex save or take 4d12 bludgeoning damage, be pushed 10 feet, and knocked prone. Additionally, the ground in that area becomes difficult terrain. And then I also really like the reaction is Stone Shield twice a day. This is essentially shield as though the shield spell. However, it's not listed that way, so it can't be counterspelled. And it has the benefit of working on both the Geomancer themselves and any creature of their choice within 30 feet to add that +5. And this is giving me real Earthbender vibes, like kind of just pulling up a rock to block for yourself, or like pulling a rock over in front of an ally so that they can, get that +5 to AC. And again, we also have an Elder Geomancer here as well to bump things up to a challenge rating 8.
Number 7.
Really any of the Fiendish Dragon templates. There's a variety of different options here for you to look at, but I always have mentioned that I love templates because templates allow you to basically expand anything you have. One new template that can be applied to any creature, obviously we're talking about dragons specifically here, but if you have a base Abyssal template, which I believe we do have in this book, you can take any other monster that you've ever used in any game, whether it be first party, third party, or otherwise, and then just add this template to it, and now you've effectively created a brand new monster for your party to fight, which means that, if you have 500 monsters, you now have 1,000 monster options for each template, 1,000 total, basically doubling the amount or adding, an equal amount of different creatures based on the number of templates you have. And here we can see what goes into the Abyssal Dragon template, right? Obviously, dramatic shifts in the way they look. They become a demon, as opposed to being a dragon. Armor class goes up. Some ability scores go up. Saving throws. If the creature's CR is 5 or less, it gains a number of proficiencies equal to saving throws. Proficiencies in saving throws until its total number of having saving throws is 2. However, if the creature already had 2 or a larger number of saving throws, it retains those with no additional ones. Then it gets Dark Vision out to 60 feet. If it's less than challenge rating 6, if it's higher than 5 or less than 12, it's 120. And CR 12 or higher gets 120 feet of True Sight. We've got various languages, resistances to cold, fire, and lightning. If the CR is 4 or higher, it also gains resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, slashing. Immunity to poison in the poison condition. If it has vulnerability to poison, it loses that. Magic resistance, so advantage on saving throws against spells. And then again, the challenge rating would need to be recalculated. I also really like this because we do have a variety of different art in here as you scroll for a variety of different Abyssal-based dragons. Or again, there's also Infernal here, but I was just covering Abyssal as this particular point.
Number 6.
I think it's pronounced Kumiho? I'm not sure. Here it is right here. It is an evil fey shape-shifting creature. Also gives me, obviously, Ninetail Fox, Ari, League of Legends vibes here. But I thought it was interesting to just have another, like, outright evil fey creature, and this one's a little bit different, right? Preys on humanoid beings, and it's, I think it's another, it's a energy-draining kiss as its ability here. I feel like it also looks like ones that would eat a heart, which it does look like it has an extract heart ability as well. So the base version here, again, challenge rating 2. Got some pretty standard Fey resistances in non-silver bludgeoning, piercing, slashing weapons. Keen hearing and smell, claw attack, a tail attack, which does bludgeoning damage and can grapple, a bite attack. We also have extract heart on an incapacitated or grappled target. They take 40, 10 plus 3 piercing. If it reduces you to 0, it kills the target by ripping its heart out. And then again, a charm ability here. Picking a target within 30 feet makes a wisdom saving throw, be charmed for 1 full day. They obey the verbal and telepathic commands of the Kumiho. If the target suffers any harm or receives suicidal command, they can repeat the saving throw. It can only have 1 target charmed at a time, and then also has a shape-changing ability to go back from its medium humanoid or back to its true form, a medium fox, while retaining its game statistics. So humanoid with the tails, or just into a fox. So yeah, the transformation into a humanoid isn't perfect as it still retains its ears and 9 tails of the fox. Okay, so medium humanoid or a fox is what it sounds like. Very cool though, and then obviously we also have an elder here bumping all of the different abilities up, and then an ancient version at challenge rating 10 that also includes lair actions.
Number 5.
Half Dragon template. Now again, I've done a video on the Half Dragons in the past. There is a version of it contained in the monster manual, but I found it kind of lacking. This version adds significantly more, and there's some really good sample options here as well. Obviously, you're going to become dragon type. You're going to, let's see, the Half Dragon's AC is equal to its dragon half's AC minus 2. Choose the dragon half that is equal to the size and closest to the challenge rating. We're going to get a fly speed. If it's large or smaller, of 30 feet. And then it gains a flying speed of 40 feet if it's huge or larger. We get to get a bump to our strength, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Obviously, we'll get a different set of proficiencies and saving throws. It gains the proficiencies of both its dragon half and the base creature as far as skills go. We will have, based on size, either blind sight, dark vision, or a combination of both at different ranges. Resistance to the same resistance that the dragon half has. Same thing with immunities. It gains the same features of the young version of the dragon itself. Gets a bite action. Let's see. Okay, and then it has a new action of multi-attack, and then obviously also the breath weapon, which again will scale and adjust based on the type of base creature. And then again, challenge rating will have to be readjusted. So I'm going to scroll through because there's a lot of fantastic art here, but there's one that I really like. It's this one. It's the half blue dragon bullet. I just think this looks awesome. Let's see. Do we have the stat block here? Yeah. I just think it looks really cool. Take a bullet, which I think is a very awesome creature already, and then add things like the jump, the lightning breath, and so on. But now its deadly leap would also be able to jump up and then also fly, which is pretty terrifying because bullets were scary enough when they would burst out of the ground and jump up. But then add a 30-foot fly speed on top of that, again, for the young version, whereas the adult would have a 40-foot fly speed. And then we also have the ancient half blue dragon bullet, which is, again, challenge rating 17 with a frightful roar, legendary actions, and so on. Again, there are more awesome creatures like this, and again, with this template option, the half dragon template, you're really only limited by your imagination. Take any creature you want and then make it a half dragon version of that, which again is another reason why I love that there are so many templates in this book. It's even, you can use it within the book itself, but again, it applies to any other, 5e product that you have.
Number 4.
The Mothfiend. If you ever wanted to incorporate a Mothman style creature into your game, look no further than the Mothfiend. While not technically a fiend itself, it obviously gives off Mothman vibes, and it even has the sort of impending omen that is often associated with the Mothman. This is a Mothfiend, though. Base level here is a challenge rating 3, with an aura of despair that goes out to 30 feet. Each creature within it must make a wisdom saving throw. And then they have if they have less than half their hit points, they're at disadvantage. They're frightened until the start of its next turn. A frightened creature is incapacitated and must drop whatever it's holding. It also has the ability to detect despair. Has its proboscis there that can do piercing damage as well as psychic damage if the target is frightened, and has its hit point maximum reduced by the psychic damage, which is 2d6 taken. We have talons that are piercing damage as well as a grapple and a restrain, and then a doom glare. One target within 60 feet must make a wisdom saving throw or take psychic damage. It also has to be frightened, and then has a shadow teleport that recharges on a 5 to 6 with a 60-foot range. I just think it's a really cool and interesting creature, especially again for those who are a fan of the Mothman. We also have an Elder Mothman, and then a Mothfiend, and then a Mothfiend Lord as well.
Number 3.
The Pale Knight, or the Knight, Pale. This is basically the art and the kind of design and things I've been thinking about what I would want a Necromancer to really be in 5e. I would recommend checking out all of the other knights as well. There are a lot of interesting options for like Fallen Paladins. But yeah, it's basically a melee fighter mixed with a little bit of minion creation here. So we have our base Pale Knight, which is rocking an AC of 16. Has advantage on its undead allies have advantage on attack rolls and saving throws against any effect that turns undead while within 10 feet of the Pale Knight, which also has its Scythe, which does 2d6 plus 2 slashing plus necrotic, and the target can't regain hit points. It has its own necrotic gaze, which does necrotic damage, and the target can't regain hit points. And then it can summon an undead, whether that be a number of skeletons, zombies, ghouls, or wights, whose combined average hit points does not exceed 80. And then we have some spell casting here, right? Animate Dead, Blindness, Deafness, and so on. As a bonus action, we have an Aura of Necrosis. When it's activated, let's see. Creatures within 10 feet of the Pale Knight must make a DC 14 con save or be incapacitated. Unless they're incapacitated. On a failed save, the target's going to take 2d6 necrotic damage and be poisoned. Poisoned creature has a vulnerability to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage, which is pretty nuts. And then a mortal strike once per day. Immediately after the Pale Knight hits with its Scythe, it can now force the target to make a DC 14 con save. On a failure, they drop to 0 hit points. On a successful save, they take 2d6 necrotic damage. And then we also have a Pale Knight Elite and a legendary Pale Knight, along with legendary actions associated with it. I thought this was a really cool concept. I really like the design. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's like I said, it's like the Necromancer that I've always wanted. Both a combination of minion mastery and, life-draining martial abilities in melee.
Number 2.
The Tarasca. Not to be confused with a Tarrasque. This is another one of those interesting hybrid creatures, right? A cross between a lion, a bear, and a turtle. I just think it looks awesome. This is just, the art is fantastic. Let's scroll up a little bit and learn more about it. So, we can see it obviously has a swim speed with that turtle affiliation, resistance to fire, immunity to poison and the poison condition, can hold his breath for a long time, has a bite attack, does slashing and piercing damage, and is grappled. Until the grapple ends, it can automatically hit the target with its bite attack. It has a sting ability. We saw that sort of like scorpion tail that does piercing damage and poison damage. And then it also has a breath weapon that does poison damage in a 15-foot cube. If they repeat the save at the end of their turn regarding the being poisoned for a minute from the poison breath. And then I think we also have an Elder Tarasca and an Ancient Tarasca. I just think these are really interesting. Like I said, I don't know if these come from some form of like folklore or something, or these are just things that Dragonix and team, or Dragonix and, you know, suggestions from patrons or what have you, led to the development of this creature, which I just think is absolutely fantastic.
Number 1.
And lastly, we have this lovely creature you're seeing on your screen here, a Haghead Creeper. I couldn't resist putting this on here because I think it has some of the most interesting lore, and also the art is just fantastic. So it says, when a hag dies a violent death and its body is left to rot, the malignant essence might spread out and find its way into a creature's egg, and then basically seep into it, corrupt the embryo, and mutate it. For some reason, perhaps due to the hag's potent magic or some other form of a curse, the embryo gestates into a hideous and loathsome horror called a Haghead Creeper. So this looks like this might have possibly been a frog egg that led to this creature's development. But as you can see here, the Haghead Creeper is a monstrosity. The particular one here is amphibious, has a horrific appearance, right? A human starts his turn within 30 feet of it, must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failure, they're frightened for a minute. Unless the target is surprised, the target can avert their eyes from making initial contact for the horrific appearance. And then for multi-attack, we have a bite attack that does piercing and poison damage, is also a grapple and a restrain. Claws, we have a death glare, which is similar to kind of stuff we saw on like Banshees, right? Which it targets a creature that's frightened of it within 30 feet. If they fail the wisdom saving throw, they immediately drop to 0 hit points. And then we also have a swallow ability here. So it is on one grappled creature, smaller, medium or smaller. They take 2d6 plus 4 piercing plus 2d6 poison. Then they're just swallowed. The grapple ends, and then you have typical inside of a creature abilities here, right? You're blinded and restrained. Total cover from attacks. You're going to take acid damage at the start of each of your turns. And then again, it can have only one target swallowed at a time. If it dies, a swallowed creature is no longer restrained and pops out. We also have the Haghead Creeper Elder, which adds things like a Shriek ability. And then again, the Ancient Haghead Creeper, which just sounds absolutely terrifying. I just really like this concept. I couldn't get away from the fact that it's basically you beat the hag, but some of its just malignant energy sticks around and finds its path of least resistance to find a way to formulate itself into something to kind of continue moving about. Again, in this instance, it does seem to be like some sort of a frog or something, but it could be a bird, and then you give it a fly speed. Could be really, really interesting what you're able to do with the Haghead Creeper. So there you go, folks. That is my top 15 monsters from Dragonix's Deadly Denizens. Again, a thank you to them for sponsoring the video. Check out the link in the video description and feel free to pick it up if you like what you saw. Like I said, it's 290 pages. It is a little pricier on the $29 front, but it's a lot of quality content as well as potentially virtual tabletop integration or STL files, whatever fits what you're looking for. So let me know if you picked this up yourself and what your favorite monsters are in the comments down below. And I will see you all next time.